Talofa lava, this is Pacific Waves from RNZ Pacific. I'm Susanna Suiswiki. Coming up,
just pray. Pray for us and remember us in their prayers.
Solomon Island students in Israel want to return home. Also, where do Pacific people stand amid the tensions? And
it's an amazing group. There's such diversity in the genres and languages and just beautiful music.
This year's Pacific Music Awards finalists are revealed. The Solomon Islands High Commissioner in Abu Dhabi is working closely with the Australian government to help bring home 5 students in Israel amid the ongoing tensions between Israel and Iran. The ministry says that they are closely monitoring the situation and maintaining regular contact with the students. I spoke with one of the students, Leroy Enoch Wate, and began by asking him if he was safe.
We are safe here. Actually, we live in the southern part of Israel.
Have you heard from your embassies or your country's government?
Yeah.
And
we heard from him.
And what have they said?
He said they're going to arrange something like flights, maybe, but they didn't confirm the date.
Okay, so you're still waiting for confirmation of dates. Is that right?
Yes.
So at the moment, where are you guys? What's the situation like at the moment?
We stay in a place called Kibbutz Yahel. It's in the southern part of Israel, and it's safe here. It's safe. Like, maybe we didn't hear sirens and stuff like that. Some of us even go to the farm. Like, it's normal.
So you're a student at the agricultural school? Is that right?
Yes.
And how long have you been studying there?
We came here only for 10 months training, and we already did that. So we finished on June number 5, yeah.
Hey, Leroy, can you describe the mood in Israel? What's it like being there when you have these strikes going on?
Actually, it's like for us in the islanders, it's our first time, like experiencing this kind of, because you can hear from a distance like explosions and bombs, the interceptors, because in Israel they have the thing like intercept. So it's kind of scary and because usually if we heard sirens, we usually run to the bomb shelter like 10 minutes before the bomb hits. But because the Israelites people, they trust their interceptors,
So as you say, it's your first time being there. Have you been able to contact your family and friends to let them know that you're safe?
Yeah. I already did that. I think that's the first thing I did. I told them that I was safe and secure here. But all I need right now is I need to go home because this thing is getting worse. Like they still bombing especially the north and the central Israel. But for us in south it's safe. But for me it's not that safe.
So you just want to go home ASAP?
Yeah, sure. I really need to go home. All of us, the 5 of us, because from the Solomons we have only 5 students, and right now, as we're speaking, the Fijians and the Samoans, they are leaving today. That's why I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to miss you guys. I need to go home also. Yeah.
Oh, so their government has been able to arrange?
Yeah, but they're going to go to Egypt and maybe after Dubai and Philippines, then Nandi.
And when do you think you'll hear back from the Solomon Islands embassy? When's the next message or advisory? Do you know?
We just heard from him in the morning. He said, because in Australia they want to, I don't know, some of the people in Australia need to go back. So he tried to arrange us for the same flight for us, but maybe we will go through Jordan and Dubai and next Brisbane and Solomon.
And so you're just waiting to hear the confirmation and you don't know when it'll be confirmed, right?
Yes.
Okay. Hey, thank you so much, Leroy, for your time. My last question is, what message do you have for those that are worried about your safety?
I think the most important thing is they need to just pray, pray for us, and remember us in their prayers. It's not that safe here. It's scary, and it's I don't know how to describe. But the message is I want them to know that I'm safe. Yeah, we are safe. But remember us in prayers.
And with uncertainty over a ceasefire in Iran, there's one thing that Israel can be certain on. That is support from most Pacific Island nations, from Fiji to Papua New Guinea to Micronesia. Experts say that most of their support comes a strong Christian presence in the region, dating back decades. Kaya Selby asked Reverend James Bhagwan, head of the Pacific Conference of Churches, whether he agrees.
I think it's wider than a religious issue here in Fiji. You know, we have civil society, we have some faith groups speaking out in support of Gaza. We have others who have a more literal understanding of the relationship with Israel, speaking from a different perspective. But in terms of what we are seeing now with the U.S. Incursion into Iraq and the involvement of the region, the Pacific region, this is the big issue for us, because this is not about our perspective or take on what is the Holy Land or the situation with regards to Israel. We are talking about military engagements that are involving the Pacific region. And our region has a memory of nuclear testing, of occupation and trauma. And, you know, we don't forget that when we talk about these issues. They're not standalone. They just remind us of the ongoing use of the Pacific as some sort of just a staging ground for these operations.
So how do you feel when you reflect on Pacific Island nations' attitudes towards Israel and being very supportive of their actions, especially in the last General Assembly vote when Fiji, Papua New Guinea, etc., voted against the permanent ceasefire in Gaza? How do you square that with what you want to see for the region?
Well, I think as I'm talking, again, I will come back to the point that I'm speaking about the U.S. engagement on Iran, which is the current issue. And we have to understand that that is what we would like to be speaking about right now. Engagement on the issue of Israel is one of political situations in each country, and that's the challenge that each nation faces from within as well. And so I think the challenge is for us to pay attention to how each action, each foreign policy decision impacts the region rather than just bilateral relations. So some of these decisions may be based on bilateral agreements and bilateral partnerships, but we have to recognize in this broader scheme of things, we're not just talking about the U.S. The minute the U.S. engages on something through the Pacific, we're talking about AUKUS, we're talking about all the other issues that connected with the increasing militarization of our region.
I mean, could we even link that to political leaders' religious beliefs? Rabuka, for example, is very, very... he takes his religion very seriously. I mean, what kind of connection can we draw there?
Well, you could draw any connection you want. I'm not going to speak to that. That is something that has to be looked at both from a political perspective as well as a personal religious perspective.
Right, so you don't see a connection between religious fundamentalism and support for Israel in the Pacific?
No, I didn't say that. You asked me about Prime Minister Rambuka's religious beliefs. That's a different point, right? There is a connection. There is a political connection when it comes to governments making decisions, working on what is the political power and who holds the votes in certain areas, playing to constituency. And we can say that there is a religious constituency within the Pacific that does support Israel in that sense. It does not necessarily mean it's the majority view, but it is one that is seriously considered by those in power.
It's seriously considered enough in order to stand against the rest of the international community. It must be very, very significant, right?
What do you mean by significant?
I mean significant enough to shape foreign policy for these countries, especially on votes like this.
So again, I'm saying it depends on how those political operatives or those governments and those politicians in government consider the support that they get from that particular aspect of the community.
Right. So why is it right now that these countries are giving so much weight to that if it isn't a majority of people necessarily, as you say?
Because that's their support bloc that they are working with.
A new poll by the New Zealand Taxpayers Union shows almost half of respondents oppose the Cook Islands having automatic New Zealand citizenship. But there's no appetite from the current government or opposition to can the current arrangement. Caleb Fotheringham has more.
Poll results from the 1,000-person sample show 30% of respondents support Cook Islanders retaining citizenship, 46% are opposed, and the rest are unsure. The question starts off with a statement saying the Cook Islands government is pursuing closer strategic ties with China, ignoring New Zealand's wishes and not consulting with the NZ government. It then asks if the Cook Islands should enjoy automatic access to New Zealand passports. Spokesperson for the Taxpayers Union, Tori Ralph, says the framing of the question is fair.
If the Cook Islands want to continue enjoying a close relationship with New Zealand, then of course we will support that. However, if they are looking in a different direction, then I think it's entirely fair that taxpayers have a right to say whether they want their money being sent there or not.
Deputy Leader of the New Zealand Labour Party, Carmel Sepuloni, says the presentation of the question would have influenced the results.
I think the question is a leading question with the poll, and it asserts or assumes that we've hit a dead end here and that we can't resolve the relationship issues that have unfolded between New Zealand and the Cook Islands. And we want a resolution. We don't want to assume or assert that it is all done and dusted and the relationship is broken.
The two nations have been in free association since 1965, but Ms. Ralph says talking about the history of the country's relationship, including the Cook Islands' contributions to New Zealand, would not have been appropriate.
So that would be a different question. We were polling on the Cook Islands' current policy, asking about historic ties would introduce an emotive element that would influence the response.
New Zealand's acting Prime Minister David Seymour says it would be premature to remove citizenship rights.
There's been a bit of a bump in the road lately, but that has been worked through between our Prime Minister, our Foreign Minister and their government. I believe in the long term, New Zealand needs the Cooks need New Zealand.
New Zealand has paused $18.2 million in development assistance. Foreign Minister Winston Peters says the decision was made because the Cook Islands failed to adequately inform his government about several agreements signed with Beijing in February. Ms. Sepuloni, who is also Labour's Pacific People's spokesperson, says the Labour Party is in agreement with the government that the Realm Nation has breached its free association agreement.
It's an extreme response, however, in saying that we don't have all of the information in front of us that the government have. I'm very mindful, though, that in terms of pausing or stopping aid, the scenarios where I can recall that happening are scenarios like when Fiji was having their coup.
She's calling for urgent face-to-face dialogue between the two countries.
This year's Pacific Music Awards finalists have been announced with a record of 34 finalists across 13 categories. The nominations were revealed on Monday night at Mangere Arts Centre in South Auckland. I spoke with Pacific Music Awards event producer Petrina Tongisaina. Hey, talofa lava Petrina, we had the Pacific Music Awards finalist announcement last night, but this is the first time that there's been 34 finalists, is that right?
Yes. It is right. Yes, we're so happy with that number.
Yeah, I bet you are. Can you elaborate some of the artists that are leading this year's nominations?
Oh, there's a handful that we've got with multiple nominations. The two that are leading in terms of literal most, with 4 each, is Shane Walker and Aradna, which is awesome. And then we've got Sweatit, Jordan Matawai. I'm just looking at my list here, and a couple of others that have got 3 nominations. So, yeah, it's really great to have them acknowledged in multiple categories.
Nice. And we also have some new artists in the mix?
Yes. So 15 of our 34 are first-time finalists. And again, we're just so happy with that number because that signals to us, a new wave of artists, and it's always really nice to bring new artists through the awards and to be able to celebrate them.
Great. I know that last year that it was the 20th anniversary for the awards. Why do you think Pacific music continues to have this longevity within Aotearoa?
I think we're building up. We've always had a strong legacy. You know, there's always been artists and musicians and songwriters that have really paved the way for us. I think everything sort of seems to build on itself, if you know what I mean. So we're sort of growing and building on the legacy that has been coming, you know, from the past. I'm wondering too if our artists are particularly tech savvy and the independent nature of music that does appeal to them, and they can operate really independently and release a lot of music in this current environment. I think it does encourage more content to come through. We're just really happy. So it is interesting. We never know sometimes what's going to happen when we open for entries, and it's like we keep an eye on releases, but who actually comes forward to enter, you know, we don't know till the process starts. So it's always really heartening to see, you know, the amazing numbers that came through this year.
You know, prior to the awards existing, in your mind, who were some of the Pacific artists that had laid the foundations for the new generations of Pacific musicians that have come through?
Gosh, there were so many. On the spot, a couple that initially come to mind bands like Adija, artists like Annie Cromer. They were sort of more older school with our like sort of string bands and things like Bill Savesi. Like those are the ones that are coming through. There's so many. Sorry,
that's all right.
It's really hard, but yes, there's just some incredible artists that we've got to look to.
And just coming back to the present, what are some of the challenges that Pacific musicians still face?
Yes, it's always, the music business, the music industry is really challenging financially. It usually is money. So whilst the technology can provide some, like we're talking about the ease of potentially making music, but releasing music and earning income from that music is really hard. So it's just artists adapting to the environment and just being realistic with the nature of the business that they're in. And it seems like they've got to do a lot of things, so they've got to be good at the creating, the releasing, the promotion, the live performances. They need to sort of be on top of everything. You can't necessarily just focus on one thing anymore. Multi-talented and multitasking.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, they still got to have that passion, right, to keep making music.
Yeah, and I think that's what, you're right, that is the drive, because whilst money isn't the motivation, but it's just a reality of what it is. But most the music is what they're there for. They want to tell their stories, they want to create music, and they want to share it with the world. But it is a difficult business to be in.
I just want to ask you something that's not related to the Pacific Music Awards, but earlier this year we had the Aotearoa Music Awards, and there was an incident where a politician made remarks during Stan Walker's performance. And given the political climate that we're in now, do you expect that there'll be politically charged performances?
We never know. We're always open to supporting our artists and the content of their music, so whatever those topics may be. We've had a mix of political leanings, I think, but more, I think we're just thinking back, it tends to be issues that are affecting our communities or, topics that are relevant to artists and their families, like not so political, but let's see what comes through.
How would you handle those performances if they were political in nature?
Well, I think we always talk to our artists in advance, because they're up for specific recordings that they've released, so everyone is either nominated for a particular single or album, so we have an idea of that content, and we encourage them to perform that content as opposed to something new or unknown. And we also just in general will just remind them of the audience, it's a very family, community focused event. We're also live streaming, so we've got an open audience that's watching, and Yeah, it's always just that line, but I think it's just encouraging the creativity and the existing content and just perhaps putting in a little awareness of who's watching.
Yeah, cool. Hey, thank you so much, Petrina, for your time. That's the end of our talanoa. Is there anything else that you'd like to share?
I just want, encourage everyone to check out our finalists. Like, it's an amazing group. There's such diversity in the genres and languages, and just there's beautiful music to enjoy and discover. So there'll be artists you know and artists you may never have heard of. So just get behind our finalists and check them out. We've got a Spotify playlist, and we'll have content all up on our website and socials for you to find out more about each of the artists.
That's Pacific Waves for today. For all episodes, head over to rnz.co.nz/Pacific. We're also on Spotify, Apple and iHeartRadio. From myself and the RNZ Pacific team, tō whā soifua.